Hey, Eagles sports fans. Welcome to New Mexico Sports Chat. This is Joe. We always preview Eagles games. The big news this week, Jair Alexander maybe calling it quits and the AJ Brown drama. But first, let's talk about the Eagles Packers. Remember to hit like and subscribe if you like the videos. So, with the Eagles Packers game, offensively, I think I talked about that a lot in my reaction video. However, we know that the Eagles are a good team. We know that offense is going to click eventually. So, is AJ Brown's complaints warranted? So the other thing there is we absolutely have no running game. Barkley was 22 for 60-ish yards. So again, you know, what are we doing on offense? I agree with a lot of the pundits when they talk about the Eagles have no identity on offense. Um, are we a running team? Are we a passing team? We know that the offense has got to go through Barkley. We know that that's going to keep 8 men in the box. I think the Eagles need to pound the rock and move forward. They could have pounded it against Green Bay. I mean, how does Green Bay shut down the Eagles running game when the Eagles have one of the best offensive lines in the game and let the Panthers run all over them, let other teams run all over them. So, what are we not doing? What are we doing schematically that is not working? So those are things that I think that the Eagles should have self-scouted during the bye week. Apparently they didn't. The offense came out and stunk. I understand on Devonta Smith's touchdown that, AJ was double covered or in coverage at that time. So Jalen had to go where he needed to go. However, the play at the end, just shows that there's something wrong with this offense. Is it Patullo? Is it Sirianni? You know, those things are out. And that's got to be fixed this week. Or because if we get into a scoring match with Detroit, we're going to get blown out of the lanes. Defensively, Vic had a great game plan. I'm still a little suspicious of the defense. The Packers did have wide receivers open. It was just the front four pressure, on Jordan Love, called some errant throws, called some underthrows. The sacks, the pressures, the quarterback hits kind of kept him on edge. We got the Jordan Love that we wanted, the one that, struggles at times, makes bad decisions at times. So I think that the defense will continue to improve, but that cornerback two position has got to be, fixed. There's big problems there. There's going to be issues because if Goff gets a little bit more time to pass than Love guy, even if it's just a half second longer, he's going to pick the Eagles apart. He's a much better quarterback than Jordan Love. I know a lot of people don't want to say that, um, but it's the truth. Goff's been to a Super Bowl. Granted, it was with the Rams. Wasn't one of his best years. Wasn't one of his best games. But he's improved since then. He's matured since then. So the Eagles' offense is not going. Defense is going to struggle a little bit this week with Detroit, I think. So, Jair Alexander. Let's talk about Jair. He comes to the Eagles in a trade. I think he was just much happier in Baltimore, being with his college buddy Lamar Jackson. Um, Healthy scratch. What is the issue now? Is it an Eagles locker room issue? Did these guys walk in, and go, wait a minute, I don't want to be here? We have to think about that. The other thing is maybe these guys were coming in and looking for a cush way to end their careers. And Eagles, being a Super Bowl caliber team, said, no, you just can't rest on your laurels. You can't rest on what you've done in the past. You're going to have to work hard to get your playing time. Everything's a competition with the birds, which we already know. Guys, Brandon Graham said it the other day, to John Clark, you got to step it up. You got to play and earn your reps with the Eagles because they are good everywhere. So you got to take advantage of what you have been offered on defense. So, I think that, if he is having physical problems, maybe he does need to work those out and retire. If he's having mental health problems, my, my heart goes out to him because we all struggle with those at times.
Boarding progress.
So then on to AJ Brown. He's always said that he had that reputation for being a diva. He didn't think it was true. Come on, AJ. You're being selfish and you're being a diva. Plain and simple. It is what it is. When becoming a distraction is more important than the team, you're being selfish. Some guys are saying, I watched ESPN Get Up this morning. I've seen it on the Birds Huddle. These things have a shelf life. John Clark kind of said it best. It has a shelf life. It's not going to last another year and a half. I would not be surprised if AJ Brown is gone at the draft. The Eagles trade him off, get a top 5 pick, grab one of those Ohio State receivers to put opposite Devonta Smith. That's what I see occurring if AJ doesn't get his crap together. I understand this is the first time he's only had like 400 and some odd yards at this point in the season. But I really feel the Eagles are going to have to throw the ball and throw it a lot against the Lions. Because they're not going to have a running game. Ken Mailata and Lane, hold off Aiden Hutchinson, another story. But I almost feel like maybe some of those trade rumors about AJ should have been followed through, maybe even explored a little bit, even though the Eagles said he was untouchable. But those things came out for a reason. Somebody talked, and that's the way it is. So on to the Eagles-Lions. What do we know there? So Lions are going to be a tough one this week. I know they're second in I think they're leading the division now in the NFC North. My apologies to those who watched one of my videos the other day and corrected me when I called it the NFC Central. That's what it was throughout most of my life until this division rearrangement in the last 20 years. But it is what it is. But anyway, the Lions lead that mainly because of defense, hard-nosed offense. Gibbs and Montgomery in the backfield are going to be a headache for the Birds. Goff has always been on fire, plays well, and even when he doesn't play well, the Lions are never out of it. If you remember the Houston game last year, he threw 4 or 5 picks, and the Lions still won that game. And Houston has, not a great defense last year, but definitely a top 10 defense last year. So, there are those things that we have to worry about against the Lions. And I think, as Jalen Hurts said in his press conference yesterday, this is a team that is probably hungry to play the Eagles. Let's see where we go stand against the Super Bowl champions. Had it not been for their division, their injuries last year, the Eagles could have very easily been playing that NFC championship game in Detroit. Defensively, Detroit's stout. A little bit weak in the secondary. One of my concerns is when you have a former player playing for the opposition is how much does that former player spill? How much do they keep in confidence? Avonte Maddox is over there, playing for Detroit. Can he give insights into Vic Fangio's defense to the OC and to Dan Campbell? Aiden Hutchinson, like I said, is going to be a pain coming off the edge. He's one of the best edge rushers in the league, and it's going to be up to an injured Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata to hold him out. Campbell's going to screen for tush-push procedure calls. So if the Eagles are in those 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 situations and go to the tush-push, there's going to be a problem there. I think that's going to be watched really closely this week. I do think the speed of the guards of Steen and Dickinson getting ahead of the snap. It's hard to see the snap because the center doesn't fire out straight away. So where's the ball at when the ball, when those guys are moving? That's always my one question mark because that's hard to see even on the replays. Offensively, like I said earlier, the Eagles have to step it up. The offense is going to have to be more explosive, more big plays, or this game's going to get out of hand. Um, I'm probably one of the few that are going to say that the Eagles are going to lose this week. I think Detroit takes them something like 34-17. Um, and then maybe we'll get some pushback against Patullo. It's hard to have some pushback against a guy when your record is what it is. But the Eagles were 10-1 when they fell apart with the OC Brian Johnson a few years ago. So there is that component. Barkley, 60 yards again this week, but AJ needs his 100 to shut him up. If not, I'd bench him for conduct detrimental to the team. You should be keeping all that stuff in house. I'm sorry. That's all I got this week on Eagle Sports Chat. Um, like I said, hit like and subscribe if you made it this far into the video, and have a great weekend. Go Birds.